Welcome to Esalen Live. Actually, this is a recorded version of Esalen Live. We had little tech issues this morning, but we want to just punt and go with the flow as we speak with change agents and swim deep waters. Joining me today is Chris Murchison, Esalen faculty, and you had a session scheduled at Esalen and it was canceled due to COVID, so we just wanted to bring you back. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. It's nice to see you, Christine.
Nice to see
And
you
hello,
too.
everybody.
You're a passionate advocate for positive workplace culture. You have your work at Hope Lab and the Center for Positive Organizations and the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. You're on the advisory board of the International Positive Psychology Association. And we just wanted to chat with you a little bit about workplace culture because it's all work from home or odd in some way. It's a conundrum for a lot of people. What have you witnessed?
What haven't we witnessed is probably the question. It's such an interesting time. For those of us that are working from home, there's this interesting new kind of melding or meshing of our work and personal lives in a way that I don't think we ever could have fully imagined. And while in the past we talked about work-life balance, I think now it's definitely a work-life integration. And your work is just in the midst of your life every day from the moment that you wake up until you go to bed. And like, I know from my own experience, and I know from peers as well, that it's just so easy now to be continuously connected to work. It's like a lot of people are replacing their commutes with working, or just even more available to work calls and messages and other things. And so one thing I've seen is this kind of overworking. People struggle with being isolated, and so just that feeling of being kind of alone at home, or if you're partnered or with a family, just sort of being isolated from colleagues and other people that you might socially interact with. And so I think isolation is a challenge for people. I think having trying to work from home with distractions around you is sort of difficult for focusing and to kind of keeping your attention primary.
So let me
Um,
ask you, it sounds like you're saying we're disconnected, but
mm,
because of stuff like this, it's almost like we're hyper connected. I mean, there's people getting Zoom fatigue and video conference calls back to back so that we're so connected, but we're not. Is
yeah,
there something in that we can observe and grow from?
I think so. I just when you were saying that, I thought about the work of Sherry Turkle, and she's done a lot of work around or research around loneliness and kind of just the impact of technology on our lives. And I think she coined the term of kind of being alone together. And I you could even flip flop that kind of being together alone. But I think we are mostly separated from each other and isolated from each other. And so, to those sort of normal kind of things that happen in person, like I think there's a chemistry that happens between humans when we're physically together. There's the ability to see more of the human being than what you see on the tiny screens on Zoom or on our computers or phones. You see more of each other's humanness and get to experience them more fully and more wholly, I think. And so I think in the absence of that, you can feel really disconnected, and then that can lead to feelings of social isolation, and then depression even, or just severe loneliness even.
You mentioned and you brought up the word human, so I'd like to just share a couple of these rituals. I know that you kind of back, and I've shown the screen here, workplace rituals, see the
Yeah, yeah.
human. I know this is something that you've done a lot of reflections around. What does this really mean in this work culture that we're dealing with right now that's so disparate yet hyper connected? How do we see the human in people?
Yeah, so I mean, on screen, we're kind of limited to what we see in this kind of 2D format. And so I just don't think the Zoom or other platforms are set up to kind of see the whole human, that some of the body language that we might pick up on in person is lost, given the format and platforms we're in. And so it's hard. I think it's hard to really fully see each other, and then in not being seen, I think the consequences are that again you just feel less connected, um, yeah, just less connected to your
Mm.
peers, which was, I think, is challenging.
And I know that you're a big fan of check-ins and just to have this be one of the possible solutions. Like, what are check-ins and how should we do those to support each other as humans?
Well, I think, people have been really creative during these times. And so that might be a silver lining of the pandemic and from this working from home time is that human beings are very creative and very resilient. And so people are coming up with all different kinds of ways to connect with each other
Can you give
online.
us an example? Can you give us an example?
Well, one example that I love is the idea of giving people a tour of your home. And so,
Oh,
we're no longer, in the office space together. And so, I find when people will ask you at the start of a call, where are you calling from? And um, and even having people show you the room that you're in or a little bit of view into your home, this kind of humanizes the other person and takes them away from just being a face on a screen to kind of putting them in the context of where they are, which I find really lovely. I also think that vulnerability is a big one for feeling more connected, especially online. And so I think that the more that we can share some vulnerability on these platforms, I think that opens the door to feeling more emotionally connected to each other. And so when sometimes people will do check-ins that are very light, and while those are helpful for getting acquainted or sharing a few tidbits about what's happening in our lives, I actually think that going a little bit deeper in our check-ins, in our meetings with each other, and to kind of being a little bit more vulnerable, I think that actually goes a lot farther on these platforms to help us feel
well,
connected.
let's do that because there are people who are in this platform of the screen, but there's also people who are out
Mhm.
there doing essential work that are
Yes.
in person. And I feel like these are also tools that we could take into the real world as well, not just in the box of the screen. So,
Yeah.
what if you and I sort of do kind of a light check-in?
Yeah.
Guide me through that, and then guide me through what would be a deeper check-in. Would you mind?
Yeah. So a light check-in just might be, what has your attention today?
Oh, I feel like that's a really deep
Well,
check.
I guess it depends on how you read the question. But let's just change that to what's at the top of your to-do list today.
Oh, yeah. Calling the DMV is at the top of my to-do list, Chris. Aside from you right now, the
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
DMV.
Yeah. So a
And what,
question like that gives you a sense of, in your group, kind of what's at the top of their minds.
yeah.
And then a deeper question could be what has your attention today, which could be a kind of a deeper, broader array of things. But then going even deeper than that, you could ask a question such as, what's in your heart today? Or
Mm,
what's been challenging for you this week? And
those
so
are
just
good.
taking people, and oftentimes I will take people through that arc of an experience, so starting light and then getting a little bit deeper and then a little bit more deeper than that. And that might not all happen in one meeting. It might happen over a series of meetings, but I think you can't start at the deep end because you might frighten people.
It's true.
So,
People have they have different tolerance for these types of questions.
yeah,
But these feel like things could work in person too.
absolutely.
This morning
Absolutely.
on my dog walk, I just saw the arborist. There was an arborist, fixing some kind of tree situation. And
Yeah.
I feel like, they could check in with each
Yeah.
other too if they wanted to, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think checking in with each other is always important. I think it's even more important during the times that we're in because, again, a lot of people are feeling some sense of separation from each other. Even the what people call the social distancing, which I don't prefer that term. I prefer physical distancing, but the distancing is also contributing to us feeling separated from each other and less connected to each other. So I actually think, any opportunity we have, whether that's on these platforms or in person, to really connect with people, to make eye contact, to ask how they're doing today, to check in with them, helps us feel more connected to each other in powerful ways.
I love that. I think there's something else powerful I know that youth are a big fan of as a workplace ritual, which is to express gratitude. What
Yeah.
does that feel like? What does that sound like? What does that look like in a workplace? Not necessarily just in the screen, but just in
Yeah.
general at work?
Well, I'll start actually with a personal practice that I have, which can also be something that you do in the workplace. But as I go through my days, people come into my mind. So it could be a current colleague, or it could be someone who I've known in a previous job, or a friend. But in my day-to-day activities, human beings pop into my consciousness, and usually because of a good thing. And so I find a practice that I have is that when someone pops into my mind, I make an effort to reach out to them and just say, hey, just thinking about you today, you popped into my head. I wanted to reach out and say hello. So I think that that simple expression of letting someone know that you're thinking of them is a pretty powerful expression of appreciation. And
Mm,
so I find that people on the receiving end of that respond really in a really beautiful way. Like they appreciate being thought of. And so that's one personal thing that I do, both in my personal life, but also at work. And find that that's really unexpected oftentimes, but really well received.
yeah, I feel like we're very lucky at Esalen because the word thank you flies out of people's mouths and just say, thank you for helping me. Thank you for being
Yeah, yeah.
supportive. I mean, those little things, it seems like they might not make a big difference, but do they?
Oh, I think they do, and I think even beyond the actual words "thank you," I think there's even a deeper level. And so, taking the time to actually note with some precision what it is that you specifically observed and what you specifically appreciate, kind of really deepens that gratitude in a way that I think um, takes it to heart even more. So,
Observing milestones. What do you think about that in
yeah,
terms of
milestones.
that's another way of expressing
That
gratitude.
it is another way of expressing gratitude. Sometimes we race through our days and weeks and months and race to milestones and through milestones and then move on quickly to the next thing. And so I think when we don't pause to observe milestones, we actually lose an opportunity to learn and to reflect and to connect more deeply with each other. And so it's a practice that I think is pretty necessary for learning.
Is it also that it's like a team observation as well, if you're working on a team to say, you know, um, the reflection of what we've accomplished together? Oh, this is another one, pause for reflection, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is. So I think it's both individual and collective. And so, milestones can take many shapes also. So the milestone could be achieving a goal in a project. A milestone could be an event in someone's life on your team. A milestone could be a new member joining your team or someone leaving your team. So I think there are many opportunities to take that pause and to use that pause as an opportunity, for reflection or for deeper connection or celebration. You can create a ritual out of that milestone in a way that really um, boosts people's sense of being connected and,
Mm.
and and having a meaningful experience together.
Is there someone in your life or an experience in your life that helped shape this trajectory for you because you're so passionate about human potential in the workplace and all the things that help shape human potential? Was there someone who saw your potential? Was there an experience you can share with us?
It's a great question. It's funny. I'm not sure I can think of one specific person. I've had a number of people, and I've been lucky. I've had a number of people in my life that have mentored me and kind of taken me under their wing, if you will, and supported me in my professional and personal growth. And I think having people like that in your life is really important. And it may be your family members, or it may be others that you find and curate intentionally over the years. But I've been lucky to have people who've really seen me and kind of gotten me, and I've held on to them as people that I turn to for support and advice and wisdom.
If we embrace these practices, not just the ones that you've shared in this short moment together in our conversation. But if we really look at the whole of the workplace, are we going to be able to manage this for a few more months at least? Maybe, I mean, it's hard for you to predict, I know.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to manage this? And then my second layer on top of that is that this second place used to be our workplace, but it's so strange right now and it's not necessarily the second place. So does it really matter where we work now?
Mm. So really a good question. I think this pandemic is going to reshape how we think about work. It already is reshaping our experience about work and how we think about work. Again, I think again, people used to talk about work-life balance, and a few people would talk about work-life integration. And I actually think the concept of work-life integration is much more known and experienced now and embraced. And so I think workplaces will have to really reconsider um, what the experience of work is. And so maybe rethinking work hours or rethinking work flexibility, maybe creating more intentional pauses in work so that people really are encouraged to reflect and to learn. There might be new ways of thinking about, like, as we've been talking, how to connect virtually in more meaningful ways, how to create relationships virtually or how to collaborate better virtually. I think all of that is already emerging and will just get bigger and stronger. Um, but yeah, I think the times that we're in now are ripe for people to burn out. And so, as I said in the beginning, I think a lot of people are just working a lot of hours, and then those are the perfect conditions for people to burn out. And so I do think there needs to be more attention to how we also take care of ourselves during times like these, and heighten maybe our emotional intelligence about how we're doing and what we need to kind of come to work more fully alive and fully refreshed. Um, I think those are things that workplaces need to start paying attention to.
Yeah, and it really is hard to predict the future. No one knows what's going to happen. There's so much unknown, right? So I think the
Yeah,
workplace culture will continue to guide us from the unknown and shape what is going to become the future of the
yeah.
workplace. And I feel like we should talk again, Chris.
I think we should, because I think a lot of people are also struggling with purpose, and so some researchers predicted that during times like this, that people's sense of the purposefulness of work or the meaning of work is going to shift. It's going to cause them to start questioning the work that they're doing and if it feels meaningful to them or not. And I'd say that's very true. And so even more so than before, there's going to probably be a rise of people wanting to do work that is truly meaningful to them, and that might cause people to think differently about their choices of where they're working or who they're working with or what projects they're working on as well.
I feel like that's part two of our conversation. I'm going to reserve an entire session for that because I feel like I've been hearing that too. Chris
Yeah.
Murchison, Esalen faculty, when we reopen, be sure to come back. But in the meantime, you and I will stay connected because I think there's something to this topic of purpose and meaning in your work that people are really going inward with right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.